All right, gang. I think we are live, and you are at show number 56 of the JVology show. My name is Jay Fazette, and I have with me a dear friend today, Doug Sandler. How are you, Doug?
Jay, man, I'm happy to be here. Episode 56, so it matches almost my age. That is very cool. I'll take it.
You know what? My dear wife and I were just having this conversation last night. It's like, how the hell did we get into our 50s? Like that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. In my head, I'm still 12.
Yeah, there's no turning back, and nobody gets out alive. So let's just keep rolling.
Yeah, actually, in my head, I'm about 22. I'm old enough to get into trouble. So welcome, Doug. I really appreciate it. Doug and his partner, Strickland, run something called Turnkey Podcast. They have been helping both me and a whole variety of people in our JVology community to get our podcast up and running, and I'm incredibly excited to talk about that. But before we do, what I always have to do, Doug, is spend a couple of minutes telling people about what the JVology show is, how it works, all of those fun, wonderful things. So on that note, for those of you who are new to the JVology show, and to this, and to me, and to Doug, and. My name is Jay Fazette. I am the founder of JVology, the perfect mix of people, fun, and profit. And what that is a community of people that really focus on building their businesses through collaboration and win-win. And what that really boils down to is something called joint ventures. So we help people redesign their business models to get a steady stream of perfectly qualified free leads at the front end of their business and consistent recurring passive income at the back end of their business through having their partners refer them for the leads and referring partners to help solve the problems of their clients in a much more meaningful manner. Now, we do this in a whole bunch of ways. This show is one of them where we feature brilliant people like Doug to our community at JVology and to the entire world because we want people to know about what they do because they do stunning and amazing work. We do it through live events, which I guess it's still live event, just not necessarily in person, such as our program JVology Live, which we've got one coming up on June the 12th to the 14th that you should be at. And I will actually put a link in the chat so you can find out more about that. We do it through digital programs like the Joint Venture Success System. We do it through our, in fact, we got a call today, our membership program, which is called the Global Lounge, where people from all over the world come together to share and to communicate all of what they do with offers and opportunities and all of those pieces. And short version is this: we get to have great fun with good people, making amazing money, and we think you should know more about us and it. Now, on that note, there is one other mechanical detail, but I'll do that after I play my little video. And then what's going to happen is Doug is going to give us the rundown about Turnkey Podcasts and how, frankly, podcasts can grow and scale your business in beautiful ways. Here's the little video. We'll be right back. All right. One other mechanical detail before Doug gives you the rundown, which I forgot, which is this: we love to talk to you. You can ask questions. We will answer questions. We will tell you anything that we can that'll serve and support you. But to do that, you have to get to the broadcast page. So we share these shows everywhere, all over Facebook and LinkedIn and here, there, and everywhere. What I need you to do to talk to us is click on the video button or click on the video, and it will take you to the broadcast page, and then you can see the chat. And when you get there, say hello, tell us where you're from, and then we can get moving and shaking. And I am going to get over to the chat as well. And on that note, Doug Sandler, podcast expert, done more episodes than almost anyone else on planet Earth, and a genuinely good guy, even has a podcast of the same title, a genuinely good guy. And you have shown up in our community in a incredibly powerful and positive way. And I just want to start by saying thank you. I appreciate you. But why don't you tell the rest of the world what you're up to, who you serve, how you serve them?
Oh, awesome. And thanks, Jay, for having me here on episode 56. And I love being here. And what's so great about what I learned from you in even the first, I would say within the first 15 minutes of me being at your live event just a couple of months ago. And it was I'll go first. You know, and when you said that, something clicked in my mind thinking, I wrote a book called Nice Guys Finish First and have a podcast called The Nice Guys on Business. So I never really associated I'll go first with the terminology of being nice, but man, what a great way to segue into this. So for us, the I'll go first within JVology meant, hey, why don't we introduce this subject of podcasting, and why don't we provide an opportunity for those that are in JVology to actually build a podcast. So who a podcast is really great for, and specifically the ones that we deal with, we really do look for entrepreneurs who are looking to stop being the best kept secret, or maybe an entrepreneur whose income hasn't increased for the last 3 years. They're looking for a different way to develop business, for lead generation, because what a podcast really does is it creates a high visibility platform to help entrepreneurs build more influence, grow community, and really what that comes down to is really making money. So the way that, thank you, Michelle's got a little message up there. Doug rocks. I appreciate that. The problem that we really solve is if you're lacking visibility, or if you're lacking marketing or a strategy, develop a consistent level of leads that come into your business. Podcasting can really do that for you. And I know that you probably have no issue with getting leads coming in the door, Jay. But what's so great about it is it funnels everything through this platform called podcasting, which is a uniform process of consistent multiplication of your efforts out there to the world. People are broadcasting, they're hearing you. And it's a great way to become even more of a high visibility statement using podcasting as a tool.
Now, let's start at the very beginning. Okay. For example, my dear sister, we were talking about podcasts, and she's like, so a podcast is a what? And it was like, so they pay you to do your show? Like she was like, So it's one of those things that, how do I put this? When we know what something is and we live it, breathe it, and you have built a strong business with it makes perfect sense. But there are still lots of folks out there that have not warmed up or are even aware of the incredible content, education, support, and communities that exist through podcasting. So maybe I think we should take 3 minutes to step the uninitiated, those that don't have Apple CarPlay. Yep. And let's start at the beginning, because it is an incredibly powerful tool, and I'm totally enjoying it.
No, great. So podcasting is an audio recording or video recording, but in my case, I deal with audio only. It's an audio recording that is able to be consumed on demand by a customer. So if you're somebody that's out there in the world and you love Datsun 240Zs, for example, there,
or you resist and resent them because they cost so much to restore.
or that could be the case. And I'll use my show as an example. I have a show called Ford Mustang, the early years. I have a 1965 Mustang, and the best way for me to bring the collision of my professional life with my personal life is to create a podcast around it. So those people that are interested in first generation or early Mustangs can listen to my show, and during the show, they're getting educated. They're becoming a part of our community. They're getting stories. They're getting inspiration for maybe some restoration project that they're working on or thinking about working on. They're getting information about how to buy a classic Mustang. And on the other side of it, on the business side of it, I have an opportunity to get sponsorship. I have an opportunity to do JV relationships with people that are also serving the same community that I serve. Collaborative arrangements. I'm working right now with on a fundraiser for a Mustang project that's going on because all of the live events and car shows have been shut down. So we're going to take it online. I can use my podcast as a tool to educate and inform people of the live event that's going to be taking place in August. So you can make money in a variety of ways, 20 plus ways to make money podcasting. You can educate in a variety of ways using podcasting as your tool. You can grow influence as a podcaster by aligning yourself with other influencers in the space. So what it comes down to is it is an audio recording that is consumed on demand by the consumer that's out there at any time that they want to consume it.
Awesome. So I'm going to say what my dear sister said. So it's like a radio show that's recorded and accessible for people whenever, wherever, however. And I said, for the purposes of this conversation, okay. And I know it's more, there's more to it than that, but for the uninitiated, it might be a decent way to think about it.
Absolutely. And it's also what's really nice about it is it gives you an opportunity to really, really fine tune. Like, let's say that you're an underwater accountant and you want to only talk to other underwater accountants. Well, there is probably a podcast for underwater accountants that are out there. I was amazed. I was doing a funeral director research to try to figure out how many podcasters are or how many funeral directors podcast. There are dozens of funeral director podcasts that are out there right now. So talk about micro niching down. So if you have a specific product or service that you offer to a very small segment of the community, what a great opportunity for you to share that. You don't even need a big audience to make money from your podcast then.
So let's talk a little bit about the what I'm going to call the hyper niching that is going on in our world right now. Because one of the key pieces that I really love about the podcast, and when you and I started talking about, should I do a podcast? Shouldn't I do a podcast? Why would I do a podcast? I was astounded at how specific shows are. I mean, and it's on every topic under the sun, from sexuality to individual diseases and ailments to spirituality to every sort of religion or I mean, the hyper niching is astounding. So just talk to me a little bit about that, because I think in today's world, particularly with COVID, particularly with the pandemic, all the other things, this idea of finding our folks, this is like a magnet for our unique folks. And we don't, most of us think we need, 100,000 clients or some crazy thing in the digital marketing space for a list. But the truth of the matter is that we need a handful of raving fans who become clients. And this is like one of the most powerful ways under the sun to find them.
Yeah. I mean, we produce a podcast called Lung Cancer Considered. I mean, so specific. It only is dealing with, and it's only dealing in the medical community too. So the niche is doctors, oncologists that deal with lung cancer. And what's so cool about that, while it's a very serious subject, other lung cancer physicians, oncologists know exactly where to go to find this podcast. The riches are in the niches. So the closer that you can fine tune down to specifically who you want to serve and create a podcast around that audience, the better. Now, we have a show called the Nice Guys on Business podcast, and it is a very general business show. However, we can do seasons of those shows, or we can do specific episodes that really fine tune. And what's great about that is that, let's say we do 5 or 6 episodes on marketing, for example, because that's a niche within the business community. So we could take those 5, we could package them together and send them out as a business development tool to other people that are marketing. And we could scour that community and see, hey, in our case, we're podcast producers. So we are looking for other marketing companies that want to use podcasting as a tool. And we can show them examples of what other people that are in the marketing world have done with their podcast as well. I love that. Okay. So let's, I've got a whole bunch of questions in terms of our time frame, but I want to just back up to, how did you get into podcasting? Like you've been here for a long while. You've got more shows than almost anyone I know. You've launched more podcasts, certainly, than anyone I know. So how did you stumble into the space? It was quite by mistake. I stumbled into the space. I was writing a book in 2015, and I said to a buddy of mine, Strickland, at the time, I said, "Hey, Strick, I want to promote my book called Nice Guys Finish First. I want to promote my book. But I don't want to hire a publicist to do it because they want like $3,500 a month to promote my book." And I said, "I think I'm going to start a podcast. I've listened to one, so I'm now an expert, right?" Yeah. So he said, "That would be great. I'm happy to help." He had 30 years of audio engineering experience. I had some sales experience, so I knew kind of what the pitch that I wanted to have when I got onto the show and started talking about my book. It evolved into a speaking business, which evolved into a coaching business. And then somebody within our community actually said, "Can you teach me?" Lou Diamond, as a matter of fact, Thrive Loud, great guy, said to me, "Can you teach me how to build a podcast the way you've built yours?" And that was the beginning of this company called Turnkey. And that was several years ago. And since then, we've gotten more requests to do podcast production than anything else that we offered. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're willing to pivot, we got into the bit. It's kind of like, Jay, and you talk about this all the time. It's like, do you create your product before you build your community, or do you build your community and ask them what they want? So we built our community, and our community screamed loud and clear, one at a time, "We want you to be a podcast producer. Will you teach me how to do that?" And that was the beginning of it. And that's turned into a multi-6-figure business. And it's been amazing for the last 3 or 4 years in putting this whole run together and creating this turnkey concept. And we've created systems and back-end systems and front-end systems, forward-facing, monetization, influence building, community building. We've developed theories and strategies around each one of these 3 ways to build your podcast too.
Okay, so I love that. And by the way, I've got some of our community members like, oh, Doug's on. So if I'm looking away, it's because I'm trying to manage
That's all
people who are trying to find you and trying to watch the show here. It's like, hey, I want to know. So the route to control, and this is part of the thing I really want people who are interested in joint ventures to really connect the dots here. So you did something that's pretty powerful, which is I'm going to take sort of the publicity of my book, put it in my own hands. I'm going to actually build a set of assets that I can leverage in a bunch of different ways. But talk to me about the power of I call it a platform, but let's call it in this case just the podcast. So talk to me about the power of controlling a podcast platform in the role of joint ventures, because I think people just sometimes it's like no lights, no landing gear. Like there's 30 of us in our community that's like, hell yes, I get that, please help. But there's still a lot of people. It's like, well, I don't really know, and it's like, did you fall on your head? Like, what happened? How come you don't know?
One of the things that you shared with me, again, I got this from your JV group, is that your asset, the things that are your strength, isn't necessarily just your list, because I don't have a very big list. So I was like, how am I ever going to serve somebody that wants to do a JV with me, and they have 100,000 people on their list and I have 1,500 or something like that? And then you said, and it was great because it was like the perfect time. And you said, Doug, how many downloads do you have of your show? And I said, 4 million, somewhere around 4 million downloads, literally. And he said, that's your, what did you call it? Your currency, or that's your inventory, whatever you said. And I'm like, I never really thought about it. That's what I have to offer. I have the platform of owning a freaking media company. We've launched almost 150 shows in the few years that we've been doing this. So I host 6 shows myself. So it's like, oh gosh, until you said that to me, I never really got it. I mean, I heard it before, but I didn't really get it. And then the idea of joint venturing with a bunch of people that could help you launch a project and using my podcast as my tool. So that's why I came up with the idea of, hey, let's offer this idea to everybody that doesn't have a podcast within JVology. And then why don't we take the people that do have shows and coach them through a different process because they already have a show that's launched. So for me, the idea of JVing with a podcast is so great. It made so much sense. I'm like, I'm not just a yes, I'm a hell yes. Let's do it.
So I'm going to translate that for any of you that are still at, my list isn't as large as somebody else's. I don't know how I'm going to actually serve a partner. I don't, any of those sorts of things. So simply put, a podcast becomes the foundational tool within which you do two things. You attract partners, because over time you're going to have the audience, you're going to have the downloads. It's going to attract it. And the other part to this is it becomes one of the ways in which you can feature, which you can share all of those pieces. Like one of the podcasts that we're working on, which is the art and science of joint ventures. It's quite literally, we're going to repurpose a bunch of these interviews that we do on Facebook over to the podcast so that we can begin to have a running start at these things. So there's so many different ways to go about this.
Well, and just remember, Jay, and I know you know this because you understand the importance of having multiple streams of content going out there. People consume content in many different ways. Somebody that's listening to my podcast, if I do a live of this, just like we're doing right now on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on Twitter or wherever it is that we're doing it, or on TikTok, that's a thing, right? Because I have never even been on TikTok.
I downloaded it about 2 weeks ago, and it's like,
haven't done anything.
I don't have time.
So people consume content in many ways. Some people love to read it. Some people like to view it. Some people like to hear it. And if you're in all of those places or in many of those places without having to create another tool, like we're doing this, you're going to repurpose this content if you use this on your podcast. So the beauty is you don't have to recreate this again, which takes more time from your schedule. So why not take the same piece of content, put it out there over and over and over again in a bunch of different ways? You will find where your audience is, and you will gravitate towards that as well.
Awesome. Okay, so let's imagine, you and I are fans of launching podcasts and having platforms and sharing pieces. What should people, and in fact, Edwin, I think this is what you meant. 3 obstacles, how do you overcome them? What are the 3 main obstacles that people face when saying, I want to do a podcast or I'm going to do a podcast? What do they really have to overcome?
So the first thing that people always hit me with is I just don't understand the technology. And that, that's a big challenge for people, and that they can't seem to get beyond that. They don't want to get beyond understanding the technology. It is quite as simple as a plug and play microphone. That microphone that you have right in front of you is a couple of $100. You spend another $100 for the stand and you are done with technology. Yes, you do need Zoom, but hey, okay. So we're all, if you're not on Zoom right now, you're having some issues. Okay. You need to have Zoom. You don't even
under which rock are you living?
Right. You don't even necessarily need to know. If you want to professionally produce it, that's great. You'll have a producer that's handling your editing. But you literally can do this with a free piece of software called Audacity to edit. And there's a million tutorials out there on YouTube right now to do it. Some people don't want to do it themselves. So technology is hurdle number one. Hurdle number two, a lot of people say, hey, I don't have celebrity status, so I'm never ever going to be able to build a podcast that's big enough to actually have an impact. And I'm like, screw that. We talked about that earlier. I have 500 to 1,000 people listening to my Mustang podcast. I could make a mint from that if I just decided to turn on the monetization tool. You can imagine talking to 20 or 30 people every week if you do a weekly podcast. So the other thing that people really hesitate, this is probably the third myth that's out there, is that I don't really know how to have a great conversation with people. I'm not really sure how to have that talk. And really, I'm not like outgoing. I'm more of an introvert. I'm like, that's okay too. You don't have to be, it's not really even about you. It's about your guests. So if you know how to ask some probing questions or ask questions that really open up the conversation, all you're now doing is asking questions from a third grade curiosity perspective. So of all of the things that people that keep them stopped from podcasting, those three I found to be the biggest hurdles, and they're easily overcome.
Well, and I mean, for me, I'm reasonably tech comfortable. I certainly wouldn't use Savvy. A decade ago, I'd use Savvy. Now it's comfortable. But even that, it's like, it was just one more thing to learn, one more thing that it was like, oh, for goodness sakes. So I want to also be clear about this, is that the easiest way to do this, like the easiest way to do this is, figure out your topic, figure out who you want to talk to, and hire you guys. And then the shit just gets done and you don't have to worry about anything except the part that I think most people like, which is having meaningful conversation with people that they admire and respect and want to support and serve and all of those pieces. So talk to us about, an average client who says, hey, I'd like to do a podcast. What do you do for them?
So the first thing that you want to really do is have this strategy call. Okay, because there's three reasons that people that get into podcasting. One is to build influence, second is to build community, and the third is to make money. And all three of those can actually be goals for your podcast, but we ask people to prioritize that so that we have at least a starting point. We can get that car in the garage and start to do a little bit of mechanics on the car and repair on the car to get it out of the garage and onto the road. The concept of launch phase, which is really the next part, is where we build the template for your show. We're creating the title. We're creating the description. We're building the cover art. We're establishing the relationship with iTunes and a distribution source and a host for your podcast. We are putting together the open and the close and putting together the welcome episode. So those 8 or 9 things in the beginning are really where you get the foundation for that template. Now, a lot of people want to know all the answers before they launch their show. And I always tell people, don't let perfect be the enemy of done, and you're never going to know it all, and you're never going to be good at it at first. Unless you're a natural born interviewer, you're going to be bad. Accept it. Okay? Accept it. But get your freaking car off the driveway and let's get it on the road. You're not going to know all the strategies. And a matter of fact, remember when we got started with the Nice Guys, I said to you, I was a professional, I was an author turned professional speaker, then a podcast producer. Be willing to pivot. If you're not willing to be flexible and pivot your business or pivot your ideas or take the advice that your community is throwing at you and use it, then maybe don't start a podcast to begin with. Because if you just think that you have all of this knowledge, that you just have to get out to the world and you know better than everybody, that is not a great starting point for a podcast. Be flexible and open. So that really becomes phase 3, which is the strategy. Because a lot of people put strategy in the very beginning. And I would say, put your strategy and your format and all of that stuff on the tail end, because let's get the thing built, let's get it on the street, and let's screw it up really good for a couple of months. And then you will start to really fine tune and figure out what you want to do with your podcast.
So I genuinely love that, because it holds true for everything. It holds true for, the fundamentals of joint venturing. As you know, the JVology Live event that we've got coming up. Our whole thing is just go do invitations and get into some conversations with people who will actually play with you. And it is in the playing that the discovery and the true learning and application happens.
Well, you know as well as I do, Jay, and we've both been in business for years, and and it's business is all about the relationships. So we figured that, hey, by us going first, we would build relationships with the people that they did not in JVology, and that for me was really my way to indoctrinate myself into the culture of JVology. And anybody that's a part of the group, I always tell you, if anybody's asking me advice, number one, I would say do it, spend the money, get into JVology, make sure that you're in the mastery program or the elite program for sure, get involved, get immersed in it, and figure out how those relationships work. Although we had some great podcasts, some great experience with JV partnerships, we never really did any of them formally. I'm excited for this launch that we're going to be doing at the end of June so that we can really do something formal. Yeah. And it's like, okay, hold my hand through this process, Jay, Michelle, Krista, you guys have been amazing with holding our hand through it. And I know Strickland's doing a lot of the tech work, but it's like, we need it because we don't know, just like everybody doesn't know how to launch a podcast. We don't know how to launch those JV partnerships.
Well, Strickland and I were having this conversation. We were in a coaching call a couple of days ago, and you guys have actually intuited a bunch of the elements already, which is one of the things about, I think, being in business for a while. Like, there's some pretty logical things that fit together, and really all we're doing is helping to string those pieces together with a overarching strategy that we believe will create a whole bunch of leverage for you guys, which I'm totally excited to play a part of.
The other thing that I think is really cool is it's at the scalability of what you're doing too. I don't now necessarily just have one JV partnership or relationship at a time. I could take 30 at a time and do this and do this launch. And I think that although we are kind of hurrying through the launch process to get it into June and get on people's marketing calendars, look, it's going to be a great first attempt. I'm looking forward to a 6-figure launch, and it's going to be freaking ridiculous. I have not been so excited about something, and to see the reception that we have gotten from the folks at JVology is all the difference in the world. We actually have been received just like I'm coming home, and I love coming home to JVology. So thank you, Jay.
Well, I really appreciate that. But and the truth is, this is. I'm going to go on a brief tangent here, but to plug you guys, we have one of the models that we teach is something called upstream, downstream, and what it really boils down to is that there are groups, organizations, educational institutions, books, like life events that actually cause the problem that each of us as entrepreneurs solve.
Right.
So in our case, I mean, this is kind of match made in heaven, because I have a community of people that's like, great, I want to grow my platforms. I want to drive more value to the people that I work with. I want to be seen and perceived more as an expert in my field. So, I mean, as soon as they say yes, they want a JV, all of those problems surface. Is like, damn, I need to do that. And for us to be able to say, it's like, well, for goodness sakes, you need to go talk to Doug and Strickland, because they're going to help you with all of those pieces through this mechanic called a podcast. I mean, you are perfect downstream partners for us, and a great contribution to the community, because it solves one of the biggest problems people have. Now, for those of you who are going like, what the hell's upstream, what the hell's downstream, and all the rest of it, the short answer is come hang out with us for I guess it's not come hang out with, stay on your couch and hang out with us for 3 days, and you will understand that going and finding one client at a time is a little bit on the batshit crazy side. Yeah. And that if you understand upstream and downstream, you're going to end up with relationships like Doug and Strickland have with us, which is, hey, we solved this problem. We should create something together, which of course we have.
And we create on the other side of it too. And I'm going to dovetail off of what you just said just for a second. We create, by having podcasts, we create a whole set of problems too. And it's now you need a way to market it. Now you need a social media thing. Now you need tech experience. Now you need, so it's like, hey, on the other side, it's great to be a part, because we are creating a whole bunch of clients that need the services of the folks that are in JVology. So, we solve some problems, we create some problems. It's okay. It's
all of us do.
Right? I love it. Nobody is the end of who is at the end? Who is at the dam? I want to know who is the dam keeper.
It might be that that Undertakers Association that you were starting a podcast for.
maybe you're right. You're right.
Talk to us a little bit. So if somebody's at home, it's like, okay, I want to find out more about turnkey podcasting solutions. Where do they go to find out more about the services for producing a podcast? Where can they check out some of your podcasts? I'd love to get a couple of links in here so that people can wander on over and get some stuff, get their questions answered and their podcast done.
Yeah, you can just, if you go to our website, which is turnkeypodcast.com, that's a great way to start. If you just wanted to jump right to, hey, I just want to have a conversation with you, Doug, or somebody on our team, just to figure out if podcasting is even a viable option for me, just go to turnkeypodcast.com/toolkit. And we'll send you a couple of documents. I'll give you 5 ways to make money podcasting. I think there's a 10 commandments of podcasting. There's a bunch of stuff that's out there that I have. And we'll give you a consult with me or one of my teammates so that we can actually go through the process of let's discuss why you'd want a podcast. I've talked more people out of podcasting. Not that there's any reason necessarily that you wouldn't want to do it, but if you have no time and you're looking to make money fast, podcasting isn't necessarily the way to do it. You got to have a long tail approach to doing this. There are some strategies to make money faster, but you are not going to get into podcasting without expending some effort, some time, and some energy. So those are the people I turn away. The people that I lean in towards are the ones that are looking to create some high visibility statements in their life, and a podcast episode is the way to do it. So turnkeypodcast.com/toolkit is the best way to get right to that meeting.
/toolkit. All right, let me just go back here. I'm typing.
I love StreamYard. StreamYard. You can do everything on the fly with that, can't you?
Well, it really is exceptional for that, and I am a raving fan of it. Okay, so I want to say a couple things, and then I'm going to give you the last word, and then we're going to get on with our day. Here's the reality: is that as we face forward in this interesting world, what is going to transpire is this. The need for connection while maintaining this idea of social distancing and all those sorts of things. And by the way, if any of you are in the, I'm going to call it in the fallacy of, oh, it's just going to get back to normal, we're not going to see normal like we once did. In the same way as if we were to talk about, 9/11 and getting on a plane prior, is that it's never going to go back to you show your passport and walk on the plane. That whole security thing is here and it's not going anywhere. The truth is with the pandemic is that we're never going to go back to exactly how it was in terms of freedom, in terms of there's just a bunch of things. So anyway, my point is this: podcasts and the capacity to whisper in the ear of your ideal client, because you're not going to be able to do it in the same physical ways, to the same capacity, to the same degree, with the same access. To be able to whisper in the ear of your ideal clients when they want, with the message that you have, is going to become more and more and more valuable, more and more and more monetizable. And it is going to become one of the ways in which you are going to separate yourself from the epic noise that is going to be happening, by the way. Through all that, there's going to be job changes, there's going to be job losses, there's going to be just a ton of things that are going to happen. And there's going to be more static and noise online. You have to figure out how to break through that static and noise. And Doug and Strickland literally hold your hand to help you whisper what you need to whisper in the ears of your ideal client. And if that doesn't make sense to you right now, fine, it doesn't make sense to you right now, but I give you my word, 18 months from now, 24 months from now, you're going to go, son of a bitch, why didn't I build that foundation early before things went crazy online? And everyone, and by the way, if you think things are crazy online now, everyone and their dog is going to have a website, an offer, an invitation, a ClickFunnels page, that is underway. So this is the time, in my humble opinion. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox momentarily.
No, that was great. That was great. Totally inspiring.
You, my friend, have the last word. What else? What else should people be thinking of in the context of podcasting, getting on a podcast, having their own podcast, any of those things?
So I oftentimes am asked, is it too late for me? Is the fad of podcasting over? And if you think about how many blogs there are, there's 1 billion blogs, there's only 1 million podcasts. So we have probably about 100-fold effort to go to get to where blogs are. So it is absolutely not too late. The other thing that I stress with my clients is that if you're calling and you're interested in putting a podcast together and you're just not sure, then I would tell you to wait. I would tell you don't do it, because what's the expression? The teacher will appear when the student is ready. When you are ready to put away the excuses of I don't understand technology, I don't have a personality enough to interview and have charisma, I don't have a large following already, so I don't know who's going to be listening. When you're ready to put away some of the excuses and the reason why not to get into podcasting, you are then becoming the student, and the teacher will appear, whether it's me or somebody else to produce your show. Podcasting is a great way to do it. The final thing I would encourage you to just keep in mind as you're building this platform in the early stages, and we were working with, and we are working with 39 of those through JVology to launch their shows. And I think we'll probably end up with maybe 12.5 of those people actually getting their act together enough to put it together. The ones that are putting their acts together, the ones that are actually putting it together solidly, or the ones that are insecure, unsure, they don't know exactly where to go, do not let that hold you back. Do not let perfect be the enemy of done. Jay, you yourself, everybody that's going through the launch with you, I know that you want things to be a little bit better and you want to tweak it and all that. I'm like, hey, anything that you do, we can undo. We just have to hit the edit button. It's so easy, even after the fact, even after it's published, to do it. We sucked on our first episode. We're on episode 1100. 1100. Wow. All right. So I know that perfect is not where, and we still aren't perfect. We are far from perfect. We are learning every day. So don't let perfect be the enemy of done. And I appreciate you having me here. And I'm hoping that we get a bunch of people that are interested in talking further about this podcasting space for them, Jay.
Yes, me too. So thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. I look forward to hanging out online with you at JVology Live again. We're knock on wood. I think there's going to be at least of the 39 people who are in process. I think at JVology Live that there should be at least 12 plus or minus people there with their podcast.
Yep.
And by the way, which is an incredible opportunity for exposure and for building relationships and for becoming a guest and all those pieces that we are going to do our very best to feature and connect and celebrate as much as possible. So that's going to be a fun time. I look forward to it.
Excellent. Me too, Jay. June 9th is the launch of all of those podcasts, by the way, 9 a.m. on June 9th. So get set for a whole barrage of emails, of social media posts for that group launch. It's going to be really we have never launched that many shows on the same day at the same time before. So I'm excited to do that.
So I got to get that welcome episode recorded. I think that's the last piece I've got to get done.
I sent you the email this morning reminding you of here's what you need to do.
All right. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Thanks, man.
Okay, take care. We'll see you soon. And gang, check out turnkeypodcast.com/toolkit. It'll get you all the details that you need. And I just cannot highly recommend Doug and Strickland enough. Talk to them. They will guide you in the correct way for you without a doubt. So have a great day. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Doug.